Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
The hall was totally spotless, decked out with a perfect mix of class and nostalgia. Photos of Celine and Gideon filled every corner, from their younger days to more recent snapshots, vacations, family get-togethers, and all kinds of community events. Tables were loaded with fancy dishes and crystal glasses that reflected the soft glow of the hanging lights. In the center stood a big cake covered in white flowers, a symbol of the 30 years of marriage everyone was there to celebrate. People were chatting away, clinking glasses, and going on about how amazing the couple was. "They're proof true love is real," one of Celine's friends commented to a small crowd listening in. Gideon, with a friendly smile, made his rounds greeting everyone, while Celine, always so poised, glided between tables to be sure everybody was comfy. To everyone watching, they were the textbook definition of a rock-solid, happy partnership. When the clock hit 8, a low buzz spread through the room. Gideon got to his feet, adjusting the mic in his hands. The soft clink of silverware on glass asked for silence, and all eyes turned his way. His slight smile seemed to hide some emotion only he understood in that moment. "Tonight's a special night," he began, his voice steady but tinged with feeling. He glanced at Celine, sitting at the main table, then continued, "30 years ago, we promised to stand side by side through whatever life threw at us. And here we are, all this time later, celebrating not just our love, but the strength that kept us going." The guests cheered, and Celine smiled, though something about Gideon's look sparked an uneasy feeling inside her. He went on, sharing funny and sweet memories, pulling laughs and soft sighs from the crowd. Every word seemed carefully chosen, but for Celine, there was something else, a subtle shadow lurking in the spaces between. Despite all the warmth in his speech, the way he watched her, like he was sizing up her every move, made her suspect something was off. When Gideon was done talking, the applause echoed around the hall. He thanked everyone and turned to Celine, offering his hand for her to stand. "Now, let's dance," he said gently, but with an intensity only she noticed. Celine nodded, letting him guide her to the center of the floor as the band began a soft tune. They moved so gracefully, as if they'd rehearsed for this. Gideon held Celine firmly, their steps totally in sync. The music swept everyone into a moment that felt timeless, the kind of love story people dream about. They danced under admiring gazes, a couple that had weathered the years and every curveball life threw at them. But as they moved, Gideon's eyes told another story. He kept the smile going, but there was something piercing in his gaze, like he was trying to see past everything Celine showed on the surface. She felt the weight of it. The applause and low chatter around them faded behind the uncomfortable silence only she seemed to feel. They ended the dance with a smooth spin, and Gideon pulled her back in close. He leaned in just enough so that only she could hear him. "Hope you're enjoying the party," he said softly. But those harmless-sounding words felt like a puzzle, laced with a tension that set her on edge. As they stepped apart, Celine noticed a strange gleam in Gideon's eyes. It wasn't the warm, celebratory sparkle she was used to, but something colder, more deliberate. She kept her smile up, but the sense that something big was about to go down hovered over her like a shadow she couldn't shake. The music still drifted through the hall, but for Celine, it sounded faint, buried by a tension nobody else seemed to pick up on. On their way back to the main table, Gideon kept that friendly grin plastered on, waving at everyone. But his hand around hers felt tighter than usual, almost rigid. Once they sat, she realized the friendly vibe he had minutes ago was now replaced by a fixed, icy stare, like he was just waiting for the perfect time to do something she couldn't predict. "Can we talk for a second?" he asked, voice low and controlled, but heavy enough to make her hesitate. She nodded, struggling to keep her composure. Gideon leaned toward her, making sure nobody else could catch what he was about to say. "How long did you think you could hide this from me, Celine?" His words hit like a slap of cold air. Her heart hammered, and that sick feeling she'd had while dancing came right back. She blinked quickly, trying to hold it together even as her mind raced. "What are you talking about, Gideon?" she asked, aiming for confident but failing when her voice shook. He leaned in closer, his face almost touching hers. He looked like someone who'd spent too many nights awake, eyes full of exhaustion and simmering anger. "Callum," he whispered, drawing out the name with a slow, almost venomous tone. "How long has this been going on?" Celine froze. Callum's name echoed in her mind, tangling with the music and the chatter in the background. She knew Gideon never accused anyone without proof. He was too methodical, too careful. If he was bringing it up, he must have something solid. "It's not what you think," she tried to say, but Gideon cut her short with a bitter smile that felt like a cruel twist on the charming man everyone knew tonight. "Not what I think?" He leaned back, arms crossed, but his voice still low. "Then tell me why I saw those texts on your phone. Why you had to meet him so many times, Celine. Did you really think I wouldn't notice? That after 30 years, I wouldn't sense something was off?" She felt her cheeks burn, both from the accusation and from the fact she actually had underestimated him. She scrambled for the right words to limit the damage, but knew anything she said would sound like an excuse. "Gideon, I never meant to hide this from you. Callum, he lost his wife recently, and I was just trying to help. That's it. I swear." He shook his head slowly, like he was trying to process her explanation. "Help him? That's what you call it, Celine? Because from where I stand, it sure looks like something else. Looks like betrayal." The word hit like a final blow, heavy with hurt. Celine felt tears welling up, but refused to let them fall in front of everyone. She grabbed his arm, trying to soften the moment. "Gideon, please. Not here. Not like this." But he slipped away gently, his expression turning even harsher. "You want me quiet," he said. "After all this? Maybe that's what you wanted all along, huh? For me to stay blind and silent while you did whatever you wanted." Celine glanced around. Even though they were speaking softly, some people had picked up on the tension. The forced smile on her face began to crumble. "It wasn't like that, Gideon. It never was." Her voice trembled with equal parts pleading and desperation. He glared at her for a few long seconds, then stood up abruptly. "This isn't over, Celine," he muttered before walking off, disappearing into the sea of guests. She stayed put, hands shaking, feeling the curious stares multiply. What was supposed to be a celebration of 30 years together had turned into a quiet nightmare. Celine sat there, paralyzed, as the low hum of conversation in the hall swelled around her. A few people whispered, shooting quick glances at her, but it felt like the entire room was staring, waiting for proof of what they all feared. Her fingers trembled on the napkin in her lap, her pulse pounding so loud she was sure people nearby could hear it. She tried to collect herself. Took a deep breath, got up slowly, and forced a polite smile as she wove through the guests, making small talk like nothing had happened. Every step felt calculated, every word weighed a ton. Inside, she was freaking out. Where was Gideon? What was he gonna do? How could she stop this train wreck from blowing up? Celine spotted her best friend, Isolde, who looked suspicious about her jittery behavior. "You okay, Celine?" Isolde asked, gently touching her arm. Celine mustered a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Yeah, just, kinda tired. Putting all of this together wore me out more than I expected." Isolde narrowed her eyes but backed off. "Well, everyone's raving about how perfect the party is. You and Gideon really know how to make memories." Celine almost choked on that last word. Memories felt like a joke at that point. Meanwhile, Gideon was across the room, leaning against a table near the bar. He watched the crowd from afar, his stare dark and fixed on Callum, who was busy chatting with some of Celine's co-workers, totally clueless to the storm about to break over his head. Every laugh Callum let out seemed to strike Gideon like a punch, and he gripped his glass so tight it was a wonder it didn't shatter. Eventually, Gideon moved, and it felt like the air in the room changed. He walked toward Callum with slow, determined steps, his gaze locked on the man. Celine saw it from across the room, dread tightening her chest. "Please, not here," she whispered, but it was already too late. Gideon stopped just a couple of steps from Callum, who finally noticed him. Callum turned around, offering a polite smile that faded fast when he saw Gideon's expression. "Gideon," he said, reaching out to shake his hand. "Good to see you." Gideon ignored the offered hand, leaning in a bit. "Good to see me, Callum," he said in a low, tense voice. "Not sure you should be feeling so cozy here, considering this is my wedding anniversary party." Callum blinked, looking surprised, then forced a nervous grin. "Right, yes, it's a lovely celebration. Congrats on the 30 years. 30 years you clearly didn't respect," Gideon fired back, each word cutting deep. The talk in the room died instantly, and everyone zeroed in on them. Callum tried to keep it together, but Gideon's words were too sharp to ignore. "I'm not sure what you mean, Gideon. You really want me to lay it all out right now?" Gideon's voice rose, drawing even more attention. "Might as well, since you clearly had no qualms crossing the line with my wife." Celine dashed across the hall, but every step felt painfully slow. She got there just as Callum started stammering something. "Gideon, this is a misunderstanding." A misunderstanding?" Gideon interrupted, practically yelling now. "You think texts and secret meetups are a misunderstanding? Like none of this has any impact?" Celine grabbed Gideon's arm, trying to calm him. "Please, not here. Not like this." He brushed her off, his focus still on Callum. "You broke my trust, Callum. And you, Celine," he turned to her, and the entire hall went dead quiet. "You destroyed everything we built." Celine tried to find words, but they wouldn't come. Shame and guilt tore her apart, and all she could do was look helplessly at the two men while tension reached a breaking point. Then Gideon stepped back, throwing his napkin on the table. "I'm done with this party," he said. "Hope you two enjoy what's left, seeing as you're so tight." Before anyone could respond, he spun on his heel and strode off, leaving Celine and Callum stuck in place under everyone's shocked stares. The hush that fell was almost as deafening as Gideon's outburst. Celine felt the weight of all those eyes on her, but what hurt most was the emptiness Gideon left behind, that sick feeling that something had shattered beyond repair. The hall stayed uncomfortably quiet, with guests trading nervous looks and pretending they hadn't just seen Gideon lose it. Celine, though, felt absolutely alone, even with a crowd around her. She kept staring at the door he'd just walked through, like his presence was still hovering there, a painful reminder of what just went down. Callum made a move to speak, but she put up her hand to silence him. She knew hearing him out right now would only make things worse. Her mind was a whirlwind of shame, anger, and sorrow, made worse by the fact she could practically feel everyone's judgments. To them, the perfect couple they'd idolized had just crashed and burned in a matter of minutes. Taking a shaky breath, Celine decided on impulse that she needed answers. Not caring about the fallout, she walked out of the hall, ignoring the concerned questions from family and friends. The night air felt harsh and cold when she got outside, but she didn't pause. She made a beeline for the parking lot, where she found Gideon leaning against their car, his hands on the roof like the weight of the world was pressing down. "Gideon," she called, her voice slicing through the darkness. He turned slowly, the yellowish parking lot lights casting heavy shadows on his face. Hurt filled his eyes, but also something else, anger and disappointment like she'd never seen. "Celine, why were you here?" he asked, voice low and firm. "Haven't you caused enough damage?" His words cut deep, but she stood her ground, moving a bit closer while still giving him space. "I'm not running from this, Gideon. Not now. You're accusing me of awful things, but you don't know the full picture. He let out a bitter laugh. Don't know? Celine, I read your texts. I heard the rumors. And after seeing you two together tonight, it all adds up. She closed her eyes, scrambling for a response. I never wanted to hurt you. Ever. What happened with Callum it was a mistake, yes. But not like you think. I was just trying to help a man who'd lost everything. He was devastated, and I got in over my head. But that never meant I stopped loving you. Gideon shook his head like he was trying to brush off her words. Help him? If that was all, you'd have told me. But you kept it hidden. 4 months. You lied, and now I'm supposed to buy this was all innocent? She stepped closer, tears threatening to spill. I was scared, Gideon. Afraid of how you'd react. And yeah, I messed up. But I never crossed the line you're imagining. I swear. He stared at her in tense silence, like he was deciding if he believed her. Finally, he sighed and looked away. You know what hurts the most? It's not the act itself. It's what it means for us. 30 years, and you couldn't trust me enough to tell me the truth. She felt the weight of his words crash onto her, as if the floor was giving way beneath her. You think that was easy for me? I got lost, Gideon. I tried being everything for everyone and ended up forgetting what mattered most. So what now? He asked, turning back to her. Is there anything left, Celine? 'Cause from where I'm standing, this all feels like one big lie. She took another step, now just feet away from him. What's left is what we choose to save. I know I shattered your trust, but I don't want to lose you. I don't want everything we built to crumble over a single mistake. But I need to know if you're willing to try. Gideon inhaled deeply, studying her like he was searching for some hidden truth. I don't know, Celine. I need time. I need space. 'Cause right now, all I see is the woman who broke me on a night that should have been the highlight of our lives. Then he slid into the car, closing the door gently. Celine stood alone in the empty lot, watching his taillights fade away. The party might still be in full swing, but her night was done in the worst way imaginable. She lingered there for a while, the cold air hitting her face, the silence feeling as suffocating as her own confusion. Every passing moment just added to the crushing sense that the ground was collapsing under her. Gideon was gone, leaving behind a raw emptiness that scared her more than any rumors or whispers. Eventually, she headed back to the hall, knowing full well she'd have to face those curious stares and hushed conversations. Walking through the crowd felt like stepping into some kind of silent trial. Some people looked away, trying not to be obvious, others just stared outright. She knew she was all anyone could talk about now. Across the room, Callum stood in a corner, clearly anxious and out of place. He tried keeping busy with a small group of people, but he kept shooting quick, uneasy glances her way. Something inside her flared, anger, maybe directed at him, or maybe at herself for letting things spiral to this. She marched over to him, ignoring the stares that followed her. When she got close, the people around him scattered, sensing this was private. Callum, she started quietly but firmly. He turned, looking relieved to see her. Celine, I'm so sorry. I never wanted, she raised a hand, stopping him mid-sentence. No. Not here. This isn't about you, Callum. It never really was. It's about me, about the choices I made and the fallout they caused. I jumped into something that wasn't mine to fix, and I'm paying for it now. Callum frowned, clearly not getting it. I don't understand. You were just helping me. You were the only one who cared. And that's the issue, she said, her voice shaking slightly. I cared more than I should have. Not because you didn't need it, but because I ignored what mattered most to me. I used your pain as an excuse to dodge my own problems. And now, I might have lost something I can't ever get back. Callum opened his mouth like he wanted to respond, but nothing came out. He must have realized that anything he said wouldn't help. Celine didn't stick around. She turned and headed back toward the main table. The party dragged on, but she felt a million miles away from it all. Later that night, when everything wound down, she went home. The silence in the house felt like it was pressing in on her. She walked through the hallway, her eyes drifting over the photos lining the walls, each one a snapshot of good times that seemed so far off now. Her hand landed on a particular frame, a picture of her and Gideon on a beach trip when they were newlyweds. They were laughing, hair messed up by the wind, eyes lit by a happiness that felt unbreakable. She grabbed the photo and collapsed onto the couch, staring at it like she could somehow reach into the past. Then she noticed an envelope on the coffee table. Her name was scrawled across it in Gideon's familiar handwriting. With shaky hands, she opened it and pulled out a letter. Every sentence hit her right in the heart. Celine, tonight was supposed to be a huge milestone for us, celebrating everything we've built. But instead, it showed how we've lost our way. I know life isn't perfect, and people make mistakes. But what really kills me isn't the mistake itself, it's that you thought you couldn't trust me enough to be honest. I don't know what's ahead for us. All I know now is I need time. I need to figure out if there's still an us to fight for. And you, Celine, need to decide who you really are and what you want. I hope we can find a way past this someday, but tonight, I'm just not strong enough to try. Gideon. Celine finally broke down, tears streaming hot and unstoppable, clutching that letter like it was the last link to the man she loved. As painful as it was, she realized Gideon had a point. Her actions didn't just hurt him, they destroyed the trust that held them together for 3 decades. And now, for the first time in years, Celine was truly alone, with nothing but her own choices staring her in the face. It was a brutal lesson but one she couldn't dodge. Sometimes love just isn't enough to fix what's been shattered. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.